explore the DeKalb County Courthouse and all of its histories, mysteries, and paranormal activity. This building was built in 1898, set ablaze in 1916, and today is home to the DeKalb History Center. So follow us as we explore what's lurking behind the walls.
The building you see today is the fifth courthouse built on this site, constructed in 1898. The first courthouse was built in 1823 and was described as a crude wood structure located on the northwest corner of the square. The next four buildings would be built in the exact location as the current courthouse. Twice in its history, the DeKalb County Courthouse was set ablaze, once in 1842 and another time in 1916. The one-story wings you see today on the left and right side of the building were only recently added to the current courthouse's design in 1918.
During the ghost tour, so we're not, going into buildings. But people on the tour, they'll be standing out there and they say, I just feel like somebody's staring at me. Is there something? And they're looking around. Well, I can feel the ghosts of the courthouse, and there are quite a few here because it's very interesting. There's some walking up from that direction, some walking up from here. They're coming to see what's going on. It's like different time periods, and they're curious, very interesting. Yes, thank you. They're used to humans, physical, walking through the building, okay, looking at this, looking at that exhibit, and so on and so on, but they are not used to people stopping humans, I must say humans, living humans, physical, stopping and talking about the spirits in the building, the ghost in the building. And all of a sudden, it's almost like a crowd. They're coming here to listen, like giving some kind of lecture. It's like, we have people see, we're standing out there, and I have my back to the courthouse when I'm giving the dialogue, but I'll see somebody else and they kind of look, courthouse is empty, all right? And they'll look at, and I know they're seeing the face, especially the guy up there where the caterers usually do their work. And somebody took a shot one night, and there was a face looking out of the upstairs where the trials used to be held. Upstairs was, the courtrooms. And so these individuals, these ghosts, are coming to see what is going on? Because they're used to everybody walking through, totally clueless, walking through and whatever, and all of a sudden, we're talking about them, do you see? And it's interesting, there's a lot of activity. This is not psychic imprint. There's a lot of activity, there's some arguing going on.
On September 13th, flames erupted from where we are standing. People described as hearing a dull thud of an explosion, and some people even described smelling kerosene.
Immediately, questions were raised on what caused the fire and who may be responsible. Articles from the time blame a dropped cigar butt from a gathering the night before from a group awaiting election results. But no one knows what really happened. It's important to note this area of the building held all the court records.
The courthouse, it never really came out, all right? But the courthouse, this courthouse was burned in, I believe, the early 1900s by arson. They never quite said that, all right? But there was one of the politicians that was coming up for trial, all right? And he was pilloried. He's still here, trying to say, I didn't mean to, it really got out of hand is what happened. Yes, thank you. He's standing, you're probably picking him up. I would work at that time, and it totally was, and he tried to, and he felt so guilty, okay, even being kind of crooked and ruthless and whatever, you know. Not many people are going to burn a courthouse down for the community, but he's been trying to make it right. Yes, it appeared. He's saying, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that to happen. He keeps trying to tell anybody that will listen. And it is in some of the records that he was suspected of arson. I mean, he's trying to correct it. I didn't mean to burn the courthouse. I just wanted the records burned.
First walking into the space, a member of the paranormal team recalled seeing shadows over in this area. This area was the site of an encounter in 1994. Visitors from Boston were taking a tour of the museum when they came across this exhibit and a display of Stephen Decatur's sword. One of the visitors, Reverend David Venator, stopped, felt an eerie chill, and something lurking behind this wall. The tour guide took the visitors behind this wall where Reverend David Venator felt something lurking. Once inside the stairwell, Venator pulled out a pendulum, worked it for a few moments, and declared that there were multiple spirits here in the stairwell. One potentially from 1810.
It is said that this space was once used to hold the prisoners awaiting trial back in the day. They would have been taken from this space in chains and led up to the second-floor courtroom to learn of their fate. During last year's investigation, a team member went inside the small closet and reported feeling an incredible weight of sadness and despair overwhelming him while in the space.
Upon walking down the stairs, one of our investigators said that he saw 3 men in chains where I'm standing. They were coming up from the basement. And they disappeared.
I asked him, he's kind of backed up from me. This man, this ghost, we've had one of the owners of one of the catering companies. I was talking about this man one night to the tour, on the Decatur Ghost Tour, and she came out later after the tour was late. We closed the tour up. She was closing up the courthouse, from a reception. And she came out and she said, "Boo, I'll tell you now." She said that area up there where they had the catering, they run the dishes and everything into the reception area and so on. She said, "I'm petrified." She said, "My workers, some of the young girls that work with me, they have had something come up behind them. It really, they said the hair will stand up on their arms. It's like something's just on, like this really nasty energy. And it's scary." She said, "I will not go up in there late at night by myself to clean up." She said, we've heard the lids on pans. Nobody's in there, but we've heard the pan lids. Something will slide across the table and crash to the floor. She said, walking down these stairs, she said, it's creepy. She said, we even heard something like a man talking. Also, there was a prisoner being escorted down these stairs by 2 or 3 of the authorities one afternoon from the trial. I don't know if he was guilty or innocent. But what happened is, the authorities said that this prisoner, the man, slipped on the stairs, fell down, and broke his neck. Killed him, all right? According to the local rumor, the locals in the area, they swore that the man had been pushed down those stairs and murdered, all right? But ever since then, we've talked to numerous witnesses, done interviews for the tour, everything, and they have said they come back in here sometimes, and the hair stands up on their arms. We've talked to 2 different people that this has happened to. One was a man whose father was a lawyer in the old courthouse in the 1950s. He said his daddy was coming down the stairs, and he was from the trials, from the courtroom, and he was carrying his briefs, his papers, right? All of a sudden, he heard, something went, rah, just a scream, and he felt something go by, crash down the stairs like a body, and then it was just quiet. It happened to a lady we talked to about 4 or 5 years ago. She was coming down the stairs, and all of a sudden she heard the prisoner scream, the ghost, and as he crashed down to his death. He's very angry. There's a very angry feel back in here. I wouldn't say it's a nasty spirit as such, but there's a lot of anger. It can affect others. By the way, ghosts can affect others with their energy. And he's trying to tell people, I was murdered. And he's standing right here beside me right now. And he's kind of glaring at me. He doesn't really want to be acknowledged as a criminal, but he wants his story told, but he doesn't.
Throughout the years, one of the more long-lasting stories that we've heard is that people reported hearing multiple people from this floor. And not just
One night in particular, after everyone had already left, our building attendant and a police officer on duty that night recall hearing what sounded like 20 plus people walking around upstairs in the stairwell area. Confused, the officer went upstairs to check who was up there and found no one.
one encounter left a young band member particularly spooked one night after a wedding. Everyone had already packed up. He had forgotten his phone charger in this back area. He came back up the stairs to find it, grabbed it out of the corner of his eye, saw an unexplained shadowy figure.
Upon walking through the hallway that connects the back area and the courtroom, he reported seeing a shadowy figure in the corner of his eye, standing at the second floor landing of the back stairwell. The figure reportedly looked like a woman wearing a cloak with her hood up.
There's somebody standing right over there, looking out the window, totally clueless. Standing right over there by you, Dad. Looking over here, looking at the light, okay, because this is a different light than he's used to, yeah, right in there. And he's here in this room because of all the equipment tables. This is obviously where they keep a lot of the stuff for the courthouse, reception, whatever. And I'm asking him, why are you still here? He doesn't know he's saying, well, this is my job, you know. But his name was Jacob. Yes, Jacob. Jacob, go do this. Jacob, go do that. And, but here, he could say he was contributing to society. He was important, he felt he was important. And he doesn't want to leave that. He doesn't know how they're going to see him on the other side. He's standing right here now. He's about this tall. He's wearing a cap, like an old, it's ragged, kind of an old engineer's cap, an old denim cap. And he picked up, yes, he said I was clever. I picked it up on the railroad tracks. It must have blown off one of the engineers' heads or the conductors. I picked it up. He was so clever, and he had a hat, a cap, all right? So proud of it. But he knew he had to work to support his wife. They were very poor, and he had to bring what money he made home to her. And he died before she did. She was getting sick too. They were older and starting to, they were ailing and going down. But he had to keep bringing that money home. He had to keep it got her the medicine. He had to, and so this is why he's here, because he thinks his wife is out there somewhere, but he doesn't know. He can't find her. He doesn't realize that she crossed on. She was a very spiritual, religious lady, and she crossed. People say, well, how do you know it's a ghost or a spirit in the ghost realm versus a spirit that's crossed over, moved on to heaven, paradise, nirvana, the true home of spirits, where they go home and they're sitting there having lunch with the angels. And when I'm working with them, there is a difference between the spirits, because ghosts, no matter how happy they are, sad, whatever, their energy feels much heavier to me because of the confusion, the poignancy, the unresolved issues that's causing them to have a lack of peace, versus a spirit that has crossed over, and they're with that very, very high energy of the source, divine, call them God, Yahweh, whatever you want to call the source. There's a difference in the energy. Spirits that come over, like when I'm doing readings for clients, when their loved ones come from the other side, there's a lightness of being. Oh my gosh, it's lighter than you can ever imagine. Whereas a ghost that's still dragging around the issues, whether they were murdered, or like Jacob here, having to support a wife that's no longer there and keep this job, and he wasn't in good health to do it. There's always that kind of sadness, that feeling of unresolved issues, trying to find that peace, those answers, and so on. And there's such a difference between the spirits that moved on and those that have stayed, And starting to, they were ailing again. And she crossed.
This is the DeKalb County Superior Courtroom. This was a courtroom from 1898 to 1967. Although technically this site actually had court in 1829, but that courthouse is located just a mere few steps from this courthouse. This room, being that it was a courtroom, is filled with all sorts of emotions. It's filled with anger, sorrow, maybe even joy, happiness, relief. Those are the emotions that come with any courtroom, but particularly this courtroom. Until Fulton County was established in 1853, this also was the site of Atlanta courts. We do know many of the trials that occurred here. In September 1957, a guilty verdict was decided for former DeKalb policeman Leslie Eugene Johnson for the murder of his girlfriend, Mary Helen Lee, and her mother in their Decatur home.
According to an Atlanta Journal article at the time, Johnson took the witness stand and begged the jury for mercy, and in an almost inaudible voice told the jury he couldn't explain why he killed his girlfriend. He was sentenced to life in prison. The trial of Fred W. Phelps in November 1947 brought eager spectators laden with sandwiches and homemade cakes to sustain them all trial, determined not to give up their spots. The trial was a spectacle and was described as having the air of a Roman holiday celebration. The newspaper described Fred Phelps, Avondale real estate owner, on trial for the murder of Ella Victoria Price.
Elderly lady, she's probably about 5 feet, 5'2", very small, 60s, early 60s. She followed us up the stairs. She was down there in the basement area, and we were talking, Marissa and Rebecca and I were just talking, and I noticed that there was a lady watching Marissa, you know, studying her and everything. And so I started talking to her, and she's saying, what's going on? Who are you? Very curious. She hangs out here at the courthouse from what I understand. There was something about her son being killed in the war. It's possibly 1800s, and he might have been, I'm getting he was killed in the Civil War. She followed us up the stairs. She's wearing a long dress. She has a bonnet on. It's probably lower middle class, you know, family. She's telling me we were respectable. We were respectable. They didn't have the money, but they had the name. They were respectable. They weren't well known, but she's looking for what happened. She wants information as to where her son is.
Archives of the DeKalb History Center. There was a police officer here one night for an event who was sitting at this computer, minding his business, when all of a sudden a girl came up from behind this computer giggled, and ran off into the adjoining offices. The officer then got up, went to look for her, and she had vanished. He describes her as having blonde curls and an old-timey dress.
Two, three, yes. Little girl, yes. Wearing a blue dress. Oh, I know who it is. It's Mary. We see her on the tour a lot. People see this little girl. Her name is Mary. She's here with two boys. She's got a little blue dress on. From the maybe 1930s, 40s, right around in there. She's running through the area right here, happy, happy, happy. Two little boys are chasing her. She's probably around 6, 8 years old. Yes. I can run and play. Look at me. I'm free. I can run and play. And she's so excited. She doesn't realize that she could be doing that on the other side, heaven, nirvana, whatever you want to call the other side. Man, I can't imagine how it would feel to be free to move when you've been so restrained. And so that is what is holding her. She's having a good time. There's no really sadness around her. She's almost too young, 7 or 8, to understand, especially back then, the permanency of death. Well, it's not really permanent. You just transition to another form, your true form, but out of the physical. But yeah, she's, boom, off she ran again. Come back, Mary. I gotta play. She's not gonna hang with me, I'm gonna default. How boring. Sorry, Mary, I'm a little stiff in these mold legs. I can come with you now,
Many occurrences, both good and bad, happen just outside the courthouse that contribute to the energy of the land and building. The hilltop that Decatur Square and the courthouses were built on was a major crossing for native trails like Stone Mountain Trail and Sandtown Trail. These trails were used by natives, pioneers and their wagons, and eventually the trails were paved and used for automobiles. The Cherokee and the Creek nations used these trails for travel and trade. This land is very old and has been used by humans for thousands of years. It's important to remember all the emotions and energies that have passed through these doors over the years. So many people, judges, trials, both good and bad, deaths, and even murders happened here. This site has a lot of history. While we now know a few of the identities of the spirits that still linger here, we're left speculating on how many others there are and why they're still here.